welcome to yet another edition of Pulp Picks. My name is Patrick.
I'm Fritz.
And we're here to give you this week's reading recommendations on this new comic book day. Although if you're watching it on Thursday or Friday or something, it's not. But it is when we're recording it. So, and it's a big week this week.
Mm-hmm.
We've got a Batman celebration going on Saturday. It's Batman Day. And we've got some good Batman books that are coming out this week, so we'll touch on that. But let's start with your pick.
First off, not a Batman book, but it does involve some mystery solving and crime fighting.
Yes, so detective work. Yeah. It's in the theme.
Yeah. But so it's Avengers Inc. issue 1, newest series from Al Ewing over at Marvel. This is kind of building off of his recent Wasp miniseries from last year. Was it last year or was it this year? I think it was this year.
It was this spring, wasn't it?
Yeah. No,
Late winter, early spring?
Yeah, and I'm getting confused because without getting into spoilers, it does also tie into a miniseries he did last year, and you'll know it when you get to it.
Yes.
But not getting to that. So this issue, we find kind of the cliffhanger from the Wasp miniseries was her finding out that her old enemy Whirlwind had been murdered in prison. And so in this issue, we find out that there were also a couple other people that were murdered, and so she's trying to investigate, find okay, how could this happen? Who could do this? Who would do this? And it's, I don't know. I really like this angle that Ewing kind of started with her in there, where she's he kind of teased it in the Wasp that her in an alternate timeline having this kind of detective agency where it's her trying to right the wrongs, the whole thing of she became the Wasp because she wanted revenge for her father's death. That's why she names the Avengers the Avengers. She's all about bringing justice to crimes done. So it's really cool, him really playing to that angle here with her, and also just kind of leaning into the very noir vibes of it. She's got her own lounge that she owns. She's kind of being hired PI style by Luke Cage as hey, I'm the mayor of New York, so I can't really be having superheroes doing this stuff. But if you do this on the down low for me, that'd be real good.
Yeah.
And so
no costumes.
Yeah, no.
Which you can get from the cover.
Yeah, which I love Jarvis's reaction to that.
Yeah.
Is which also I hope he's in here a lot because he was the light in Wasp.
Yes.
His whole relationship, this kind of fatherly relationship. It's I don't know. I never have expected to be happy to see Jarvis show up in things, so now I'm really happy when he shows up in things with how he's been written recently. But yeah, so Wasp goes to investigate these murders. Turns out that there's definitely more going on than anyone seems to realize. There's definitely some shenanigans going on behind the scenes, but a whole fight breaks out. There's some fun use of powers and everything. We get to a very I don't want to spoil if you don't know who this is on the cover, because it's definitely a deep cut, and how they set it up is not what I was expecting at all.
Right.
You can kind of see the pieces starting to come into place as it happens, but it's still okay, this is different. I don't know. I'm super curious to see what they do from here, because it kind of seems at least for the time being, the team is basically them and Jarvis, which is really cool. But yeah, and then there's a whole tease at the end that kind of suggests who's actually behind this all, and it just creates more questions. It's okay, but why though?
Yeah, exactly.
But no, I'm super excited to see where they go from here. Ewing's writing is great as usual. Leonard Kirk, I think the most recent thing he did for Marvel was he worked on a lot of the Sabretooth stuff they've done recently.
Oh, right.
And he was good on that. He's great on here. But yeah, no, I'm super excited. I love anytime you get kind of these genre crossovers with superhero stuff, because obviously you get a lot of times with a lot of, especially X-Men related stuff, you get super sci-fi, they go to space, they go to other timelines. I love the whole noir of this. It's really fun.
Yes.
But
well, and I'll throw in, not enough people were reading Wasp. It was really, really good.
Yeah.
And that's basically sets the table for what's kind of happening here, though you don't need to read that.
That's the thing.
Be able to pick that
and
up.
I feel we say this about a lot of stuff, but if you didn't read Wasp, they basically let you know everything you need to know here. And if you did, it's a really fun continuation of that. I don't know, man. I feel we say it all the time because he ends up on here a lot, but Ewing, guy doesn't tend to miss.
Right,
so.
yeah. And I think you touched on another interesting point about well, two things. So the way that Ewing writes, he takes characters that should be featured more and makes them better and more interesting.
Like Wasp is a founding Avenger, and she never gets like the love that basically everyone else who's been a founding Avenger does.
She's been the leader of the team, and she was still kind of more of a footnote. And then on the flip side, you know, I always think of Ewing as really pushing some boundaries without breaking anything.
Yeah.
And so I was preoccupied as I was reading this book going, well, but he broke some stuff here. Like, I don't know if I can be okay with this because there's some broken stuff. Not that the stuff that I was thinking was broken really mattered all that much, but you know.
But like, and it's broken though in a way where like I can see them like finding a way like to be able to like fix it without losing what they've like built from it.
So that's kind of I was kind of preoccupied with that. But by the end of the book, I was like, oh,
it's I don't know, it's one of those things where like even if like I'm ever in doubt of like, okay, why is he doing it this way? Like I kind of always know like he's going to bring it around at some point.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
can't wait until he gets his Nova book.
Oh god. Speaking of which, X-Men Red, also good. Almost was my pick this week. Yeah. But
every week.
Definitely. So I mean, I think I actually said last night to my sister, just like, listen, I could just read X-Men Red and just say that's my pick for tomorrow. I'd probably be justified in it. But I'm happy I didn't because again, Avengers Inc. really good. Definitely check them out. Yeah. Check both out. But speaking of checking things out, over to you, Patrick.
Yeah, well, I went with Batman and Robin #1, as it's Batman Day on Saturday. Appropriate that we've got some Batman titles coming out. And I meant to ask you before we started the video, but DeMio, the artist on here, where have I seen them before?
So they've done like various things here and there. They did some fill-in issues on Nightwing last year, I think, and then the big
Simone
thing.
DeMio,
the big thing before this that they worked on, they've done some Power Ranger stuff, and then they did I'm blanking on the name now, but they did in a miniseries at Boom with Tom Taylor.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, but so they've been kind of like here and there. So this is like their first like real big work at like any of the big two, and yeah, from what I've seen, they blow it out of the water.
It's awesome. I mean, just awesome. And you know, there are artists who have a style, and they can kind of get away with, you know, maybe more static poses and whatever because their style is so interesting. And then there are artists who maybe they don't have as much flash, or you know, it's more substance. They're the way that they're setting up panels and positioning people and stuff. But in particular, the way that characters, that frames are set up and characters are positioning their bodies, particularly the tilt of their head and so forth in this book, I just found extremely dynamic. And, you know, with Batman, you can either go super gritty, or you can kind of go...
Which we'll get to that.
Right, yeah, we will definitely get to that. Or you can go more whimsical. And this certainly falls on the more whimsical side, which works because you've got Damian in here. And I know that Damian is often portrayed as kind of, you know, rough and gruff and unlikable and what have you, but he's still a teenager.
Yeah.
And trying to figure out this dynamic with his dad, which is kind of a key part of this book.
Well, like, I love because so like Joshua Williamson is writing this. He also did the previous Damian-centered Robin comic from a couple years ago during like the start of like the what they call it, like the Frontier. I don't know
the New Frontier. No.
Yeah, I don't know whatever initiative DC did before Dawn of DC, but. Infinite Frontier.
Frontier.
That's what it was.
Yes.
But
yes. But which is hilarious because they canceled it right away, so it was anything but Infinite.
Yeah, but no,
it was very finite.
Yeah, but what was really good was that Damian run there. Like just kind of like Williamson has like a good feel for his voice, like him like trying to find himself because like he is like of all the Robins he's got like I mean they've all got their baggage, but like again like he's the one who's like the biological son of Batman, but also like the heir of like the Al Ghul like empire,
right?
So like there's that. He's been shown several like alternate futures where like he becomes a monster basically. Like dudes die. He's had superpowers temporarily. Like basically anything that could happen to someone has happened to Damian at this point. So like it's understandable like how he can like have a lot of baggage, but he wants to still like he wants to have kind of like a normal life to an extent too. Like he's done all the crazy stuff. He wants to have like some of the normal stuff too. Like he wants to read his manga. He wants to draw in his little art book. Like,
yep, art book comes into this.
Yep.
He's working on a story, and you know, it's interesting because we start off right away with a detective case, and I think that you know, for a long time, Batman was just kind of a show up, punch him in the face, complain about the fact that his parents are dead, and have cool gadgets. And the detective part was really left in the dust. And particularly, I know that I've talked to a lot of people who have said, you know, a lot of the movies just completely forget that about Batman at all. But the most recent Batman movie was heavily centered around it being a detective story, and a lot of the Batman books lately have been very much about it being a detective story as opposed to how do I take on Darkseid when
well, it's like
can't.
One of my favorite, speaking of the movies, one of my favorite movies from one of them is in The Dark Knight, where he's like doing the whole like forensics on the bullet, like different calibers, like, oh, how does it's cool when you get to like see him going through the process, like just kind of like the science of it all. It's part of what I liked about last week's Fantastic Four was like Ben like explaining the science of like how things react when gravity changes. Like it's, I don't know, that's one of the things that I think was especially great about like 60s comics was like, oh, since these are kind of for kids, we want to like teach them things about these kind of stuff. And like, and detectives, like that's all about like analytical thinking, like working through stuff, like, and when you wrap that up with a cool dude in the back house and punching people, it's a great combo.
Yeah, fantastic. Well, and you know, I think Bill Finger doesn't get enough credit for that aspect of the character because anybody can show up and try to scare criminals and just be a generic superhero. There were lots of them in the Golden Age that came out right after Superman. But having the detective element of it, that bringing in the shadow portion of it, you know, really works well. So I love it when they dip into that part of the Batman persona more, and in this one they're off already. The two of them kind of, and here's where this book is going to be interesting. And when the Damian Bruce dynamic is told really well, it's they're trying to work together, but they each have their own way to do it. Yeah, and so they're both coming at this from different angles. And one of the angles that Bruce has is, how do I try to give Damian a decent life now? How do I let him be a teenager while we're still doing this? Which is a great question because, you know, you're not going to win Parent of the Year by throwing your kid in a costume and having them fight supervillains. But I'm very interested. The art is astonishing. I'm very excited about the direction that this is going. You know, typically I'm the one saying not another Batman book, but this is, you know, Batman and Robin. I mean, come on, that's bread and butter. Right there.
Well, I mean, like a lot of the complaints with like, oh, there's like so many Batman books, there's so many Spider-Man books, and like the thing there is at the same time though is just like average like odds are like one of them is actually going to be really good. So like don't like if you don't want to read the other ones, read the really good ones. And this is the way you're describing it, and just judging by like the two people's like previous work on stuff, like it's going to be a good time.
Yeah, it's really fun. Well, speaking of too many Batman books, let's move to our consensus.
So, Batman, Gargoyle of Gotham.
I keep wanting to call this book Batman Grandpa or Grandpa Batman.
Well, for context, the last name of the writer/artist is it looks like it's spelled like just Grandpa. I'm presuming it's probably not pronounced that way.
Yeah, but it's not a tilde, but there's something about Grandpa.
I don't know, but we'll go with Raphael Grandpa. But like, people they might be familiar. He's done some Batman stuff before. There was a Dark Knight Returns one shot he did a couple years ago with Frank Miller. And his art on that was gorgeous. So unsurprisingly, they were like, "Oh, I should do more Batman stuff." And lo and behold, they did, and it's really good.
So he writes and illustrates this book. It works really well together. So this is outside of the main continuity of Batman, right? So this is a reimagining of Batman, and it appears to be kind of in that year 2, year 3 kind of. He's been running around doing stuff.
Like he's been beating up like just like your usual like thugs and like mobsters, and like your average Joe kind of criminals, and here he's like running the stuff that like, okay, this is a little different. Like stuff's getting weird.
Yeah, so I wouldn't say costumed supervillain per se, but psychopath.
Yeah, like he like
serial killer.
Yeah, we meet this new character. I believe they're just referring to him for the time being as Crytoon because he's obsessed with this cartoon called Crytoon,
which is disturbing.
Yeah, and like I love everything about this guy visually. Like he's just like super unsettling. Like the way he like talks about everything like it's cartoon kind of is just like it. And we don't really understand, like, we kind of understand his motivations in relation to the cartoon, but, like, it doesn't explain a lot of the other stuff he's doing and how he might be connected to, like, some other crimes going on.
Yeah, so they keep you guessing, even, you know, which is great because this is going to be, how many parts is this? 3?
4.
4, okay.
Yep.
So, obviously, we don't want to figure everything out in the first issue, but I feel like we don't even have a clue as to what's going on right now, which is great because like, it's fun to go along.
Yeah, like you can see how like threads are maybe starting to connect, but they're also like kind of similar to like I mentioned with the ending of this, where like every answer just creates more questions. It's just like, oh, here's this list of names for Gordon to look at, and it's just like, okay, that's an interesting list of names. Like,
and the Batman and Gordon going over the forensic evidence, and. So I guess we can set the table with there have been a number of murders.
Yeah.
And Gordon is leading the investigation for the police force because of course he is. And Batman is also looking into it. And the manner in which these people, well, who's being targeted, the manner in which they're being killed, and then kind of there's also this kind of this underlying story of what's happening in Gotham right now.
Yeah.
There's some social unrest in Gotham. And how is it that the people who are being targeted, how they're being killed, and the social unrest all tied together?
Yeah.
We don't know, but there are some really, really cool details. You know, if you're a true crime fan, the details of the murders and
like
investigation.
Yeah, they get into like how the person was murdered and like what that kind of like tells
disturbing.
You. Yeah. But like kind of like gives you an idea of like, okay, like what's the like headspace of like someone that'd be doing this? Like, what are they looking to gain out of this?
Yeah, well, and there's gotta what's the motivation? Like, why do it the way that they're doing it?
Yeah.
And I get the feeling like we're not seeing everybody who's behind all of this yet, but we'll see.
Yeah.
The art is gothic and creepy and dark. Like, really cool.
There's a great bit early on where like the way Batman lures some guys into a fight is just like, oh, that's kind of like I wouldn't have expected that, but like it actually makes a lot of sense to like trick them like that. This is it's kind of this is a Batman who's and this is a Batman who like he's very much like leaning into the Batman side of things. Like he's and like I feel like that's going to be part of this, kind of similar to the recent Batman movie, where it's like him learning like, okay, like what is the balance I have to strike here? Because like this Batman is not striking a balance at all,
right?
And it definitely feels like it's going to come to a head at some point.
It's got a lot of similarities to the most recent Batman movie. And there's some interesting new takes on the costume design too.
I really, because I feel like there's some other designs that have kind of leaned into similar elements where it's just kind of like he's got like a black bodysuit, but then he's got like the more kind of like gray parts or like body armor over that. Then with more like I don't know. I really kind of like how that goes.
It's one of those things where if the artists weren't as skilled as they were in making it look super cool, it would look dumb.
Like this.
But the execution here is fantastic, and I love the throwback to the noir cowl.
Like the costume could definitely look like super bad, like in the wrong hands, but like here it works. Like I love the way, like because I mean Batman always has like the little like arm spikes on his glove, and like the way that they are used in here is like so different from I feel like any other version I've ever seen of them, but like in the best way possible. Where it's just like I would love if like normal Batman comics incorporate that.
Yeah.
It's like it's super cool.
And even the shape of the cape and everything is a little different in here. But it feels, I guess overall it feels kind of like a gritty, he could get into a fist fight kind of thing.
Yeah.
And why the costume is put together the way that it is makes sense.
Yeah. Like there's just like, and maybe this is because it like being both a writer and artist, like there you get like this like everything feels made in such a way that's like so thoughtful and just like considered. Like this looks this way because of this reason. This looks this way because of that reason, and just I don't know, the design aspect for everything is just on point. I love this version of the Batmobile.
Yep.
Where it has no windows, just like cameras on the outside that like show him what's outside.
Yeah, but everything doesn't go, it's not all sunshine and rainbows for Batman. He doesn't really do great.
No, yeah, like a
A lot
character
of
even
things go wrong.
a character even makes like a comment at one point, just like, you've kind of like been like bumbling through this whole thing so far. Like you should be embarrassed.
Yeah,
It's just like
pretty good.
And like you get this internal monologue of just like, he's right, but I'm not gonna let him know that.
Well, that'll wrap it up for our picks this week. Like I said, Saturday rather is Batman Day, and we've got some free comics and stuff. We've also got a huge amount of other. There's a bunch of new stuff this week. I read a whole bunch of number ones. A lot of good stuff. And
speaking of Batman similar stuff, new Daredevil this week.
Yes, which was also very, very good. I like Aaron Cooter, and I think it's going to be a really interesting fit. So, yeah. So we'll do this again next week. Be sure to like, follow, subscribe, all of that kind of stuff. Find us on social media. Find our website. And most importantly, find us physically located in downtown Mankato. We love to talk to everybody in person, see what they're interested in reading, and yeah. Comic books are kind of a social thing, I think. So, yeah, absolutely. And we'll be back next week. Thanks for joining.
One thing I would actually kind of like if they do it as like a special edition thing, because we got that ash can a couple weeks back where it was like the first couple of pages in black and white. I actually think like a black and white version of this would be super cool.
A noir take on it would be very, very cool. Actually, I almost kind of preferred the black and white.
It's similar to me for like, because there's for like Fury Road, they've got like a black and white version.
Oh yeah.
That like, both versions I think really work well in their own regards, because like obviously the main one, like the normal version, like has a lot of like specific colors for like specific reasons, but like it also still really works in the black and white. So like I feel like this is like. Yeah, like do the main version, but like if they do like a like noir version where it's black and white, that would also be super cool.
Yeah.